Hey Sean, did you guys come out of the game with any injuries?
No, we everybody came out good. We should be in good shape there. And then coming off of the bye, should represent the opportunity to get a lot of the guys back, which will be a big boost to our team.
As you go into the bye, I know that there's not one thing that would change these results, every single result that you guys have had this season, but what's your focus going into the bye week to get ready for the second half of the season?
Well, I think number one is getting guys back healthy and then just being able to consistently play better across the board. But I think when we get a lot of these guys back, I think that'll immediately offer an opportunity for us to play more consistently like we've seen us do in certain stretches. You look at it offensively, you get a guy like Rob Havenstein, and obviously getting Matthew back would be a tremendous boost. Coming, after Seattle, then we expect to be able to get Kyron Williams back. On defense, you're getting Ernest Jones back. You're getting Bobby Brown back. So we're talking about a lot of significant names that have been big time contributors for us that we have not had. And those guys are very, very important cogs in the big picture.
Does this season feel a lot like last season to you, just in terms of the injuries you've had?
No, I would say this. We've had some unfortunate injuries for sure, but a lot of those were putting guys out for the year, and so there's been some different ways we've navigated through. And, even though I know the record is what it is, there's still a lot of football left. And I think I can feel good about looking at, the 9 games and looking at the film and feel like there's some tangible solutions for us to be able to proactively address them. I do think that this bye comes at a good time. I mean, especially with a lot of our younger players, some of these guys and a handful of them that played in the preseason, you're talking about what usually represents a full college season at this point in the year with 9 games and then 3 preseason games. And so getting them rested, getting them reset, giving ourselves a chance to kind of take a step back, address really a lot of the specific nuanced things that you're asking about gives me excitement and encouragement about how we can attack this back half of the year and see what the hell happens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary.
Hey, Sean, if you hear me?
I got you.
Okay, you had the if Matthew is not able to get back, would you stick with Brett as your starter?
The good thing is that the inclination and the direction that we're headed, I don't think that's going to be a part of the conversation. So feel really good about Matthew and how much he's attacked, doing everything in his power to be back and to lead the way for this team. And so we're going to look at a lot of different things over this break here, Gary. But I'm optimistic that I don't even think that's something that we have to worry about. But we will figure out whether it be, not exclusive to the quarterback position, but at some other spots, where possibilities to be able to add or add competition. And so that could be one of them, but we haven't made those decisions quite yet.
Is there anything that you think like that we could talk about different position groups and whatnot, but is there anything that you feel like you have to improve on going into the second half of the season?
I think it's just I think like anything else, just consistent evaluation of, all right, the rhythm, the routine, the vibe, the atmosphere that we have, that's, about cultivating an atmosphere and environment for these guys to reach their highest potential. I think we've done a good job of that. There's always going to be room for improvement. And then I think elevating and, not elevating, but evaluating the scheme, whether it be offense, defense, or on teams, what are some of those things that we can do to continue to put our players in the right spots, making good decisions on game day. And so I feel like that's a big part of my job responsibility and always evaluating those things. And I think whether, we were sitting here at 9-0, hadn't won one, 3-6, 6-3, those will be consistent things that we always want to strive for improvement. But those are the things that stick out. And then making sure that you just do a good job of continuing to stay connected to the players and coaches so that you can help them reach and realize their highest potential, which is ultimately the goal.
And then finally, Cooper Kupp, when we look at it statistically or just, in terms of how many catches he's getting compared to what he is, shown he's capable of, the last 3 games, have not been characteristic of how he's played in the past. Is there anything that he's doing different, or is that just simply a result of what's happened with Matthew and some of the other problems.
Well, I think that's a big part. I mean, you look at it, we haven't had Matthew for 6 quarters. And so yesterday, makes a big catch, on the 3rd down and long, and then catches an in breaker, so he had 2 catches, but we didn't, the production that we had offensively was so minimal that it's hard to even talk about that. You look at the Dallas game and you look at the Pittsburgh game, in a lot of situations, they're doubling him in some of those known passing situations, Gary. And so very similar to what started to happen, and even in the latter parts of 21, if he's getting attention, then it opens up opportunities for other people. But we want to continue to do a good job of being able to help him shine, put him in the right spots. And that's where I'm really looking forward to kind of taking a step back, looking at, our 9 games of inventory, some different things relative to the landscape of the league, and figure out how can we do a good job, not only for Cooper, but for the rest of our players. And this isn't just offense, but it's on defense of helping these guys shine and make big time contributions to, influence positive change towards this back stretch of the season. So he's done a lot of good things, Gary. I think some of the opportunities are specific to, all right, well, let's talk about when we're throwing it. Where's he fit in the progression? Is he getting doubled? And I thought both Pittsburgh and Dallas did a good job of playing some different coverage contours that really paid close attention to him, particularly in some of those situations. And then in the Pittsburgh game, there's a couple plays that, we could have made early on that, were uncharacteristic, but thought he was excellent against Philly and Arizona. I think the last 3 games are more of a byproduct of some other situations, not exclusive to, just him playing good or anything like that. He's done a good job, and I think we can do better. And then he's getting a lot of attention, as a player of his magnitude typically does.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Adam?
Hey, Sean. Cooper was talking yesterday about the Packers, either abandoning tendencies or even some of their core principles on defense to give you looks that they hadn't put on film before. That's something Matthew has talked about prior to this week too. Are you noticing teams doing that more this year than in years past?
No, anytime I think that you've been, where at certain points in the season, number one, when you've got a great quarterback like Matthew, you're not going to want to give him similar looks, because he recognizes things and he can make you pay. And, that I think that's something that definitely has shown up when you've got a player like Matthew. I think probably because they were planning on Matthew playing, there were some definite things that they changed up. But anytime that you're good offense, or that you've got really great players like what Matthew and what Cooper are, you're not usually going to get exactly what teams have done on film. And I think that's a compliment to those guys, to the offense. And when we've been good, really, when we've been at our best offensively, is usually when you don't get a lot of the things that you're seeing on film, because you force people to feel like you have to change some stuff up. I think as it relates to what probably Cooper was talking about, there was such a respect and reverence for what Matthew can recognize, that if they were going to kind of show him some similar looks, it felt like he could potentially, really be on it. And I think they probably just kept the same game plan when they realized that that Brett was going to play. And I know Matt probably, and Joe Barry, those guys have some insight on us too.
Right. When you do have that situation arise, what is the difficulty of adjusting on the fly in a game to that sort of situation?
They did a good job, but it's not like, a lot of the plays that we have are all purpose in regards to, if they play this, then that's where this takes you, and this is how you exhaust your progression to work through all 5 of your eligibles or 4 eligibles, depending upon how we're using the back or the tight end. And so, that's part of how you coach. You have primary reads and secondary reads, and sometimes they're coverage contours, sometimes they're across the board. So it doesn't affect things too much.
And then just generally, what is this week going to look like in terms of team activities, days off, things like that?
Yeah, you got a couple of parameters based on the CBA, but we'll keep it, we came in, cleaned up the film, and then we'll get these guys away, let them kind of just get recovered, recharged, and refreshed, and then we'll bring them back on Monday for a bonus day and get an extra day of practice, and then the coaches will do a bunch of work in the meantime relative to some of the things that I've kind of talked about earlier with you guys on this call.
All right. Hope you have a good time with the little man this week, Sean.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it, buddy.
Stu?
Hey, Sean, just wanted to ask you again about
Hunter Long. I'm not sure if this is the last week that you guys would have with that window and making that decision. And you've also mentioned, obviously, part of those decisions in the past have been game plan specific. Where do you think stand with that and potentially activating?
Yeah, I think he's done a good job as of late. I think we've got some things to be able to work through before those decisions are finalized, but you do feel good about, like I had mentioned, Bobby Brown being able to get back. That'll be a big boost to the interior parts of our D-line. And then some of those guys that not necessarily on IR, but that we were missing that are big-time contributors when you're looking at three of our captains in Ernest Jones, Matthew Stafford, and Rob Havenstein. So those will be big boosts for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beecham.
Hey, Sean, where are you at in terms of evaluating your secondary? You've got 4 interceptions. You got a lot of guys that you promoted from within. And then it's Akello and Duke who are playing a lot yesterday in terms of taking the snaps at cornerback in particular. How do you feel about how your guys you started the season with at cornerback are playing, and how can they get better?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they've done a good job. I think it's all about where are your playoffs. And I think the secondary as a whole, when you look at it, I've been really pleased with Jordan Fuller. I thought he's done a great job leading the way from the safety position. Rashis is a young guy that's getting more experience and continuing to grow. I think you're seeing a lot of big strides from Quentin Lake, being able to have a lot of position versatility. John Johnson is a guy that I thought did a really nice job yesterday. I thought he looks like he's gotten really himself kind of back to the JJ that we're accustomed to seeing. And I think that'll really be good for us as we move into the second half of the season. At corner, I've been really pleased with Akello Witherspoon. A lot of playmaking, a lot of challenging positions that we put him in. He's gotten the ball back for us a lot. Even you look at the play he makes yesterday, that doesn't go down in the stat sheet as an interception, but he's influencing and affecting the game in a positive way. We put him in a lot of stressful downs. So I was really encouraged with that. Kobe Durant was playing outside corner yesterday, and I thought he played really well in the first 20 snaps of the game, gets his shoulder banged up that he ended up having to leave on the 23rd play. And then Duke came in and he's a guy that has some experience. He's getting more and more comfortable with what we're asking, Greg. I thought he played better as the game went on. I think Aubrey does such a great job of being able to communicate exactly what the intent is and what we're hunting up, from him in particular. And I thought he improved throughout that game. DK obviously has had a lot of snaps. I think there's, been some good, and there's been some things that we have to learn from and play more discipline consistently throughout. But I like the way that he handled this past week. He played 3 snaps yesterday, but I was really just encouraged with his demeanor and his approach to the week. And I think that's going to serve him well. And we're going to need him, to come back and be a big time contributor at some point. When that is, we'll see. But I was really impressed with the way that he handled last week. And then Trey Tomlinson makes a big impact on special teams. He's getting more and more comfortable. I like his competitiveness, his toughness, his physicality, but, just hasn't gotten as many opportunities to evaluate. So that's kind of where we're at as a secondary right now overall, Greg. That's probably more than what you asked for, but you got that.
I covered it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis.
How you doing, Coach McVay?
Good. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great. With all those close games that you've been in all season, is that something you're encouraged about going into the second half of the season?
Yeah, it is, because I think when you look at it really before the last 2 weeks, the Dallas game got out of hand real quickly, like we saw once we ended up turning the ball over for a touchdown and then had some special teams things in a short field. So that was kind of the outlier. And then yesterday, I thought our defense kept us in that game. We can't expect to win any games if we don't play better offensively. We all know that. Our players know that. That's very clear cut. And so if our defense can play that way, get some of those turnovers, we got to be able to capitalize on that. And I think there's been a lot of signs throughout the first 9 games that you can believe that can be done relative to the way that I know we're capable of playing offensively. And so I am encouraged. I want to see us continue to play more consistently as a team. That's the statement, I guess, if you will. But I am encouraged by that, Dennis, and I'm looking forward to this second half of the season and getting some of those guys back, and let's go see where we can take this thing.
The second question I wanted to ask you, how critical will your run offense be in the second half to really establish your continuity offensively?
I think it always is. I think anytime that you're a good offense, and you look at any of the games that we've played where we've played well this year, the consistent theme is we've run the ball well as well, or we've at least been able to get attempts off. I guess Seattle's kind of the outlier. I don't know that we ran the ball efficiently, but we were able to get runs off, and I think that contributed to some positive outcomes as it relates to just the overall offensive production. But it's going to be key and critical. I think that's where it'll be a good opportunity to be able to look at some different things that we can implement, get some guys back, whether it be up front or from the running back spot. And I think that'll help that overall approach as well. But that's going to be a big factor, as it is with any good offense.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
We'll wrap up with Jordan.
Okay.
Hey, Sean. Sorry in advance if you hear background noise. I'm just getting off the jetway here, so I appreciate it. Okay. Cooper and Matthew have both said at various times over the last couple of weeks that you guys are seeing defenses sort of break their own tendencies when they play you guys, and some things come up that are very deviate pretty far, even sometimes from the tendencies that are kind of built in that they've shown. Are you seeing that, and kind of how is that manifesting?
Yeah, that was asked to me earlier as well. And the answer is, I think anytime that you've got a quarterback of Matthew Stafford's magnitude and experience and the way he plays, they're going to try to mess with not showing him the same things that he expects relative to coverage contours, different things like that. So that's kind of been a consistent theme with Matthew at quarterback. And then in certain situations, if you want to give some different looks at what they've shown, because maybe there's a respect factor for those players. That has kind of been par for the course. It's mainly shown up when you've been, really good. It's usually kind of what you have to deal with, but it also has something to do with sometimes the familiarity. You look at, I worked with Matt and Joe, and so there's obviously a relationship with Mike, with myself. They know what those guys can do, and so there was a couple tendency breakers yesterday, and then that's been par for the course. But I would say that's been pretty consistent since we've had Matthew at quarterback because of the respect that people have for him in this league.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I jumped on late. I didn't know if it had been asked or not.
No, that's what I figured.
When you see that, when that happens, and if it, Cooper indicated it's happening kind of more than ever this year. When you have a young team and there's even some players missing at times, what's the process like? How do you adjust to those types of in-game scenarios that come up that aren't on tape necessarily, even though it's not necessarily something that throughout the course of a game, there's always going to be things that aren't expected that come up?
Yeah, it doesn't affect things too much, because there's pure, there's a way that if anything, it affects the quarterback, but it doesn't affect, we still try to teach these skilled players how to read and recognize coverage contours. And if you have certain routes, if they're adjusted or adapted, or if they're a fixed route, that's consistent with offensive linemen with pressure patterns every single week. People change up their pressure patterns or some of their movement patterns. And so I think that's a part of the game. So it's not something that really significantly alters. There's certain things criteria wise, but I don't really necessarily that affects the quarterbacks majorly, but it really doesn't affect the other people as it relates to some of the different things that people are changing up coverage wise.
Thank you. And then one quick one, and sorry again if it's already been asked, but some of your rookies, and including high snap count rookies like Puka. What does this bye mean in terms of, this is their first NFL season on their bodies physically. So even if guys aren't necessarily hurt to the point of not being in games, what does it mean for guys like that to have this reset week, not just physically, but mentally as well?
Yeah, I think it's big. We did talk about that a little bit earlier, but yes, I mean, it's basically like the equivalent of them going through a full collegiate season when you include a lot of these guys we're talking about played in the 3 preseason games leading into the regular season, which were 9 games through, as we all know. So I think it's great. I think it's really good for our team. I think it comes at the right time. I think it'll be a good chance to not only physically, but mentally just be able to kind of, just pull away for a little bit. Let yourself just kind of just relax, get refreshed, get rejuvenated, and be ready to attack a great opportunity that we have in this latter part of the season.